Hello guys, and welcome back to the Football Diary podcast. And today we're bringing you a Premier League prediction show from all of me and my podcast buddies' predictions for the coming 21/22 Premier League season. For better or for worse, we are putting it on record just so in 9 months' time we can probably look back at this and just have a really good laugh about how wrong we were. So first up, we're talking about who we think will be champions and the top four.
I think a lot of people are talking like it's a foregone conclusion that City will win the league, but I actually think there's too many variables in that right now. Now, my prediction could completely change depending on what happens in the rest of the transfer window, but City winning the league really relies on them signing a new number 9. Obviously, the talk is that they'll get Kane, but that's still not happened, and there doesn't seem to be much on the table to suggest it will right now. I think going into the window, it was obvious that City needed that number 9 and probably another centre midfielder as Fernandinho continues to age and drop further back down the pitch. Rodri's not really filled that gap enough. So they've signed Grealish, and of course, wonderful footballer who I've waxed lyrical about on here often enough, but it doesn't seem to have filled the gap that they needed. So the team that I actually think will win the league is Chelsea. I think they showed in the Champions League last year what they could do. And after Tuchel came in, he completely transformed the side. Their defensive record got much better. The one thing they were lacking was goals. But obviously they're bringing Lukaku into the attack now, which I think will really, really help them. And that midfield seems to be going from strength to strength. Jorginho obviously had a fantastic tournament at the Euros after being instrumental in Chelsea getting to the European Cup final as well. So I expect another big season from him.
Okay, so my prediction for champions, reluctantly, it's not Man City, it's going to be Chelsea. And the reason I say this is because they've got probably one of the best coaches in the world in Thomas Tuchel and one of the best squads as well. And we saw the way he rotated that team towards the end of last season. He won the Champions League, had a real drive to get top 4 when it looked unlikely at one point. And their strength in depth is phenomenal. I think with the addition of a centre forward of the class of Lukaku, that could be the missing piece for them actually kicking on and going and winning the league for the first time in a while. So Chelsea, for me, look like a strong contender for that.
So I've still got Man City in the first position as champions. I'm hoping United can put up a challenge against them, but I don't want to be too optimistic. And I kind of just want to see how the season begins before I start to get ahead of myself. But I feel as though Man City have just got a bit too much quality for the teams and strength in depth. They could still further strengthen their team. Obviously, there's still rumours surrounding whether Harry Kane will go there or not. And if he goes there, then I think other teams will struggle to keep up with them.
Second place, it's a tight one, I think, between Man City and Man United. I'm going to go Man United. No bias there at all. But again, we're talking missing pieces here. I think Jadon Sancho was such a big omission from what United needed last time around that he could be the key to them actually finishing all the chances they create, because he's so good in the final third. And with the likes of Cavani, Rashford eventually when he's recovered, and Martial too on the end of it, I can see more goals going in for United. Call me optimistic, but I really do think that he could be the difference. And obviously with Varane at the back alongside Harry Maguire, that defence looks absolutely watertight. Seriously, Luke Shaw has had a blinding summer with England on the back of his incredible season with United. And Aaron Wan-Bissaka can only benefit by having Jadon Sancho in front of him. So United second for me.
I think United will challenge. I think they've added some really strong players to the squad with Sancho and Varane. But I don't think they're quite there yet. I just think Tuchel is a wiser manager than Solskjaer, and I think he'll be the one to really cash in on that experience this year. So, yeah, I see Chelsea winning the league with City as close runners-up, Manchester United in third, and Liverpool in fourth. I think the gap between the top 4 and the rest of the teams is going to be huge. I don't think the likes of Tottenham, Leicester, Arsenal, Everton, even Villa have done enough to inspire any sort of real challenge to the top 4. I think that's pretty much decided, really. I'd be surprised if any of us had got a different top 4 if we've only gone slightly different with our orders. But I would say Chelsea to win the league, City, United, and then Liverpool.
Second, I feel as it would be Man United again. We've obviously made a couple of really good signings in Jadon Sancho and Rafael Varane, who is yet to be confirmed, I think. But those will be two really valuable players and two world-class players who will offer us a lot in the team. They go straight into the first 11 when they're fully fit, and they will definitely offer us something that we've missed, that solidarity at the back, and the particular threat we've missed down the right hand flank. That is something obviously Sancho will be able to give us going forward. Third, I'm going to go with Chelsea. I feel as though they've obviously improved by bringing in a striker who's going to score them goals. I do feel as though Lukaku will score goals. He's always struggled to score against the big teams, and that's kind of been the case for a lot of teams that he's played for, not just in England. So whether he can do that, that remains to be seen. But he will score goals. So it's something that they struggled with last year. So I feel as though there will be a threat, and he'll be a focal point there. So he'll definitely be the main man.
Third place, Man City. I think they've signed Grealish, which is a smart move, but he may take some time to fit in, and they're still missing a centre forward. At this moment in time, they haven't signed Harry Kane, which looked likely at one point. If that does end up happening, we may be talking champions. That's the difference that a centre forward could make to them. But with the team they've got, they're very, very close to contending for the league again. Of course they are. But it will be a tight run at the top. And I'm saying third for City on this occasion.
Fourth, I feel it'll be Liverpool. They've obviously not strengthened a great deal. They've obviously bought Konate, who's potentially a brilliant player, but he has had a lot of injury problems. And for the fee that he went for, you have to wonder why other teams weren't in for him as well. Or, that Liverpool got him for that price. I think it was a release fee. But I feel as though other teams have probably got fears around his injury record and whether he can actually stay fit. And obviously they've just got Van Dijk coming back from a really serious injury, so it'll be interesting to see how he recovers to full fitness. But as we saw Liverpool last year, they're a little bit of a mixed bag. They finished quite strongly towards the end of the season, but I just feel as though they need freshening up, really, especially in that front, further towards the front of their attack. It just seems like, not like they're bored, but it feels as though sometimes they just kind of turn it on here and there, and it's not, they lack some consistency going forward last season. So I feel as though they will come forth again, and Leicester will probably just miss out.
Okay, and in fourth place, I think the top four's pretty nailed on, isn't it? So Liverpool for me. We can't forget how good a squad they've got. They've still got Mo Salah. They've still got Virgil van Dijk. They've still got Alisson, and this is one of the strongest spines in world football. I don't think they will struggle to get top four. They may even finish higher than fourth. I think the top four is such a closed shop for the rest of the Premier League that it could finish in any order, that top four, couldn't it really? Let's face it. But I think Liverpool, of the four, look the least reinforced over the summer. That's even with the injuries coming back into play. And they're a clear fourth place by all accounts. I think there's very few teams who can catch those top four, which is worrying for the Premier League. But Liverpool are comfortable fourth for me, and anyone's guess how the rest of the pack behind them will finish, to be honest, because it's quite tight after that.
So I think Watford will be one of the sides that drop down. Their squad doesn't really seem to have much Premier League quality. They lost a lot of their bigger players to the likes of Udinese, obviously co-owned, when they did get relegated. There are a couple of players there still that inspire. Ismail Assar, obviously, is someone that impressed last time in the Premier League, but I just don't think Watford have enough. So I think they will take one of the relegation spots.
I feel as though Burnley, they won't be. I don't think they'll come bottom, but I feel as though they have had a very long stay in the Premier League, and they're just one of them teams that really frustrate. When you're up against them, they're going to give 110%, and you kind of have to be on your game to beat them. They lacking quality, I feel, in the squad. They've perhaps made up for that lacking quality through just being really well drilled and structured and defensively sound, and they rely on a lot of set pieces to score them goals. So I feel as though they've probably, their stay is numbered by days now, and towards the end of the season, I feel as though this might be potentially the year that they don't stay up.
Brentford, reluctantly. I mean, they've been trying to get into the Premier League for so long now that it's going to be great to see what kind of football they play. But I do think there'll be an air of naivety about them when they do come to the Premier League and start taking on some of the top teams. I know the kind of football they play. I'm aware of it because they have been knocking on the door of the Premier League for a while. But they haven't really signed much in terms of Premier League class players, and they need to do that. You need to do that when you come up from the Championship to stand the fighting chance. So Brentford look fairly in trouble to me. But again, I could be completely wrong, and they may well be the surprise package of the season. Who knows?
The other team that I think is quite obvious, in my opinion, is the one that's having the most upheaval this year, and one that I think have probably made the wrong managerial appointment, and not enough business has been done in this window so far. However, like I said, by the end of the transfer window, my idea could have completely changed depending on who they do bring in, because they need to bring people in. It's Crystal Palace. They've obviously lost a lot of their squad. And although players like Zaha are still there, and Benteke signed a new deal after coming into some form at the end of the season, I question whether Vieira is the right man to completely rebuild a squad. They've lost so much from that squad, which wasn't really that quality to begin with. Obviously, Hodgson was very efficient and very defensively minded at times, and really secured their place in the top flight for the last few years. Without that stewardship, I do worry about them.
And my other two teams are Watford and Norwich. Norwich just being a bit of a yo-yo team. They seem to be up and down. From the Championship into Premier League and back down to the Championship. So I feel as though those two teams do just need to invest in the transfer market and look to bring more players in with quality that are going to give them a chance to stay up. I think Norwich's problem was they struggled a little bit defensively, but they didn't score enough goals, so they need to improve going forward and at the back. And Watford, the same really, to be honest. And the thing I like about both teams is they do try and play football and they try to attack.
I can see Newcastle going down. I really can. I said it last season too that Newcastle would be in danger, and I definitely think that's the case this season. They don't look like a Premier League team sometimes. I think some of their players look very sort of Championship class, and if they struggle to get a good start to the season, I do worry for how they will progress. And I do worry that a season in the Championship beckons for them if they're not careful.
And the other one is probably the biggest basket case in the league. There's always a story about them. And although that they just signed Joe Willock, in theory, I think Newcastle will be the third team to go down. I've seen Steve Bruce firsthand at Villa, and it's not fun to watch. The Newcastle fans have been sick of him for a while, and probably since before he even got there. And again, that squad has got some quality in it. I think Callum Wilson is a very good striker. Jamal Lascelles is a good leader, and Joe Willock is a good number 10. But nothing in that squad makes me think that they're going to attack enough or impress enough that they can survive. They hit some good form at the end of last season. If they can hold on to that, great. But Joe Willock seems to be their only real signing of note so far. And I do think Steve Bruce's time is probably up.
My final relegation place, again, no particular order, is Watford. I do like the kind of football that Watford play at times. They've obviously got Premier League experience within the squad, but they're one of the weaker squads in the Premier League again. And by virtue of that, I can't see them really surviving this season. And Premier League top scorer. Okay, so Harry Kane's whereabouts are still unknown. So it's anyone's guess as to how many goals he could score, depending on what team he's with. And again, this hasn't been confirmed, but Romelu Lukaku in that Chelsea team looks like he's guaranteed goals. And for me, he's my Premier League top scorer prediction. It looks like his signing's on the verge of being confirmed. If so, I think he'll be unstoppable. I think with the firepower around him and the amount of chances Chelsea created last season with Timo Werner on the end of them, it will be a completely different story with somebody of the class of Lukaku there to finish them off. I can see a lot of goals going in for Chelsea and him being on the end of most of them.
This is a difficult one because a lot still bears on the outcome of the transfer window. As of now, I think it'll be Lukaku because he is the man for Chelsea, it seems, who's going to be the man to score goals and their go-to guy. But if Harry Kane moves to Man City, then I think it'll be Harry Kane just because of how many chances they create in a game is ridiculous. And if they've got him at the forefront of their attack, then I feel as though he will be the man who scores the most goals in the league this season.
So I've gone with a penalty taker. I've gone with someone who is definitely the best attacker at their club and a club that are going to score a lot of goals, whether they shoot up the league or not. And I've gone for Mo Salah, which pains me to say. I never want to pick a Liverpool player. But I think looking at that Liverpool forward line, Firmino, we know, isn't a natural goal scorer as a number 9. Mane's form was inconsistent last year, but Salah did continue to score goals. And I think with a fit side behind him and a couple more signings, which I don't doubt Liverpool will make, I think they will challenge in some capacity. I've got them as 4th, but I think Salah's goals will be crucial to get them there. So yeah, my pick for top scorer is Mo Salah.
So player of the season, a few contenders you could pick here. It all depends on what kind of season the top teams have. But for me, I'm going to stick with the Chelsea theme. I think Chelsea will score a lot of goals and Lukaku, as I've already mentioned, will be on a lot of them, on the end of a lot of them. Who provides them will be the key to who gets player of the season. And I think the creativity of Kai Havertz really impresses me. He has such a strong finish to last season, obviously scoring the winning goal in the Champions League final. I can see him really helping Lukaku's cause and causing defences no end of trouble. He's got used to the Premier League now. And for me, he's one to watch. So Kai Havertz, player of the season, you heard it here first.
My player of the season, or player to watch even, will be potentially, I think, Jadon Sancho. I feel as though he could make the difference for Man United. And it's a lot of the games last season, we did really struggle to break teams down. And it was mainly an over-reliance on that left-hand wing where we had the threat coming from Rashford and Shaw, and we didn't really do anything on that right wing because we just didn't have that balance in the team to approach from both wings. We had Greenwood, who kind of likes to come in off that right and cut onto his left, but he didn't really. He doesn't like to kind of offer consistent width. He can go on the outside, but he does like to come in on his left foot, and Sancho can offer that threat from the right wing, and he can get to the byline and he can score goals, he can assist, he can create, he can pass around the box. He's got good interplay, and I feel like he will merge a good relationship with those front players, and I feel as though he will operate quite well with Bruno Fernandes. Off the ball, Jadon Sancho is really forward thinking as well. He knows kind of what spaces to operate in and what runs to make at the right moment. So I feel as though he'll be a really good buy for United.
Player of the year. Player of the year is the hardest thing to predict, really. Last year, I made a fool of myself when saying to my friends that I thought young player of the season would be Jadon Sancho. He then didn't even sign, so I can't get much worse than that. So I picked a player in the Premier League so far, and I can't imagine he's going to leave his team anytime soon. With Chelsea winning the league, in my opinion, this year, I've gone with someone from their side, and the player that I think will have the most improved season and I think will be really influential to their team is Kai Havertz. I've gone for him as player of the year. I think his ability to get forward and play as almost like a false nine will bring him goals. I think with Lukaku there's a more obvious person for him to provide to as well. He's a very classy footballer, Kai Havertz. We started to see glimpses of it last season at the end, and I really think that under Tuchel he can come a long way. So we'll see whether I'm going to be laughed at the end of the season because he's been on the bench for most of it because Chelsea have so many good attacking players. But I'm relying on Kai Havertz to do the business for Chelsea this year. So I have him as top scorer. Not top scorer, player of the year.